Welcome to the IDP Plus Advice Show. We're going to continue with our series looking at IDP news, what we're hearing from an IDP perspective out there, training camps, so forth, and do some division by division look at certain IDP players. And with that, let's go ahead and get started. I am your host, Ricky Rodriguez. You can find me on X at RickyRod66. And I'm joined today once again by the extremely talented Sean Teague. You can find him on X as Sean8386. We're thrilled to be continuing to come to you with IDP information. Today we're going to talk about IDP news. In particular, we're going to talk about some linebacker situations that is going on in training camp. And then we're going to hit on today the AFC South and the AFC West. And we're going to hit the same six categories we hit in the first of our series, which we recorded last week. And we're going to talk about who we think are MVPs. We're going to talk about sleepers. We're going to talk about busts. We're going to talk about people who might be great for Dynasty, but maybe not great this year, etc. So that's what we're doing. And we're about to jump right into that. Sean, you hope you're doing well.
I'm doing good, Ricky. How about yourself, man?
I am doing fantastic. Love talking fantasy football. Love talking IDP for our listeners. And with that, let's jump into some of the news and so forth. And one of the areas we're going to start with is the Rams. And before the training camp started, it was thought that maybe Omar Spates was going to be the Mike linebacker, maybe Troy Reader, who they re-signed, who did that for a period of time last year. But it looks like Nate Landman is going to be wearing the green dot for the Rams. So, what are your thoughts on Landman, and where do you see him in terms of in linebackers? So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Where do you see him?
Yeah, that was a surprise. I thought it would be Troy Reader with his experience there in previous years, a couple previous stints, and then I thought Landman had a good shot at maybe getting that second spot. But yeah, this was a surprise for sure. Just with for him to kind of leapfrog everybody and to be wearing the green dot. So it's a fantastic spot for anybody playing linebacker. It's with that line that they are building there, the production is there. Uh, Boy, Landman could shoot up to 15 to 18 range if he
Yep,
puts it all together and plays all year. Yeah.
yep. So, and he's going at linebacker 4 to linebacker 5 prices, and you can get him as a potential linebacker too. And if you look at what Roseboom did when he started there with the Rams last year, huge opportunity for Nate Landman there. And speaking of Christian Roseboom, that's another one of the Panthers that is, he's got the green dot with Josie Jewell retired, and we talked a little bit about that last week, but kind of put both of those in a similar bucket. Would you agree with that?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, both good spots where production is, always seems to be for those two teams at linebacker. Some teams just for whatever reason just never produce a linebacker that's good for IDP, but Panthers usually have one, and over the last several years, doesn't seem to matter who the Rams are putting out there. It's they're putting up numbers.
And so last week now, we talked about the Browns and Carson Schlesinger and so forth. And so for those that missed it, you can go back to the same IDP Plus YouTube channel and catch our show from last week where we talked about the AFC East and the AFC North. Um, but since then, the Browns came out with their first unofficial depth chart. And Carson Schlesinger was listed in the Mike position as a starter, as we expected. But the name that I always butcher that you're going to help me with was listed as the will linebacker and primarily the number 2 linebacker. And you want to say his name for everybody out there?
Momu Diabate.
Mahmoud Diabate. That is the name. And so were you surprised that he was starting as that will number 2 linebacker over Jerome Baker? And where do you see Diabate, and or are you putting any kind of draft capital into him?
I don't think so because I do think that's still going to be a bit of a rotation there. Maybe these guys go with more defensive backs as well because they are kind of thin at linebacker. Even though Bush is there, Baker, Diabate, they're just they all feel like rotational guys that probably aren't going to get the amount of snaps we're going to need, and there's no reason for them to stick with anybody outside of Schlesinger with as bad as this team is projected to be, especially with the offense in shambles, quarterback situations, stuff like that. So I imagine the younger guys will get most of the time here.
So you're not worried about squashing there, though, even though you have some
No,
concern.
no, I think he's for sure. You're drafting him if he could really hit the numbers, and if he's on the field as much as we think they're going to be, he's probably pushing close to a LB1.
Okay, so I agree with you on Schlesinger as well. I see him as a low end one, high end two, and I'm
Yeah,
assuming that Jim Schwartz won't do a lot of rotation with him as
no,
he did with a lot of the linebackers last year. I think Schlesinger's in, but I think there is a high probability of some rotation of some of these other folks as well, as you indicated. Now, moving over in the same division to the Ravens, their unofficial depth chart came out, and Trenton Simpson is showing as the number 2 linebacker next to Roquan Smith, still ahead of Teddy Buchanan. How are you feeling about Trenton Simpson right now? Because last week I wasn't too high on him. Are you feeling any love for Trenton Simpson?
yeah. I actually spoke confidently of him last week for at least most of the season. I see him hanging on to that number 2 spot. I think it would take an injury or just some abysmal linebacker play on his part for him to get benched. The Ravens have, for whatever reason, over the years, they've done it with Queen and Adafeowe, Ujabo, like all the young guys they bring in. For whatever reason, they don't just leave them in there full time. They seem to rotate with these, the veterans, the older guys that they bring in. So seeing him pulled last year wasn't much of a surprise. I do think he will hold on to this position a lot better this year.
So you're banking on the fact that he spent all that time with Roquan Smith in the off season, and that's going to help him to be successful.
It's not going to hurt him.
All righty, so let's shift gears to the Falcons now. And Troy Anderson hurt once again.
hmm
Divine Diablo, the free agent that they signed, is penciled to start next to Caden Ellis. So, what are your thoughts on Divine Diablo, who actually didn't even keep a starting job with the Raiders last year? So, your thoughts on him, and is he a linebacker 5'6"? Is he someone you're even considering drafting? What are your thoughts there?
So Ellis is a for sure top 12 guy that we're taking. Um, Diablo, I liked him so much a couple years ago in Vegas there with the Raiders, and for whatever reason, it just didn't work last year. I think he was injured the year before that, so he's shaky at best. If I'm in some deep leagues, deep redraft leagues, I'll take a shot at him in that 4 to 5 range. But at that point, if somebody doesn't pan out, they're in the range where I can drop them and not feel like I really lost anything anyway. But I don't have a whole lot of confidence in him personally.
So this is interesting from a scheme perspective. I read an interview with Jeff Albrecht, the new defensive coordinator for the Falcons, previously with the Jets. And one of the things that he talked about is where the thought process used to be to stop run first. All the advanced analytics and statistics show that you need to stop pass first.
Hmm.
And so one of the reasons they actually went and signed Diablo was he is a converted safety. He is a smaller linebacker who has a little bit more speed, who can do better in coverage and maybe not as well against the run.
Right.
And so as a result of that, Diablo does have a good shot of staying on the field. Now the question is, can he hold off Troy Anderson? My guess is yes. If he establishes himself in training camp in this new defense, that he'll be able to hold off Anderson. And assuming no injuries, Anderson will be a free agent going somewhere at the end of this current season.
I will say the Falcons last year were mixing up Anderson and Landman pretty regularly on different downs. So potentially that could be something we see if Anderson gets healthy enough and can regain some playing time. So that has me a little nervous there as well. So definitely something to keep an eye on to see how this progresses.
Yeah. Now my 25-year-old son who just joined a new dynasty league was in the middle of his draft, and he asked me. He said, Dad, he said, what are your thoughts on Jalen Walker in terms of, is he going to play more on the edge? Do you think he's going to play more on the inside linebacker? And so, Sean, for those that are on not watching and only listening, Sean just gave thumbs down. So, Sean, I gave similar comments, not necessarily thumbs down per se, but why are you giving that quick thumbs down before I even finish my question and statement?
That was just my initial thoughts on Jalen Walker. I'm not a Jalen Walker believer. I think he's a future bust. Um, I just don't think he's good enough at either position to really keep a full time job at either, the inside or the outside. He's not a Michael Parsons at all. So uh, I view him as just raw. He's got the athleticism and the talent could be there, but can he put it all together? Just something just feels like a no to me. And so I've been avoiding him at all costs. And if I'm not mistaken, he's a bit banged up right now. So
Yeah,
that's
he had a little bit of a
that's
hamstring injury, but he returned
yeah.
to practice yesterday. So,
Okay,
but nothing. It wasn't anything major.
gotcha.
So, what I told my son is, particularly since this was Dynasty League, I said, look, I think he's going to struggle coming off the edge, quite frankly.
Yeah.
And Caden Ellis is a free agent at the end of this year, if I remember correctly.
Hmm.
So I could see a situation where Caden Ellis is playing for a different team next year. They move Walker into the Ellis role. And of course, Ellis was successful blitzing out of that role. And Jalen Walker, I think, could be more successful there. So that's how I see this playing out for the dynasty people that might be listening to us. But right now, for Jalen Walker for this year, I'm like you, thumbs down for this year. I'm right there with you. Okay, so let's move over to now the Patriots. And the Patriots, in, in all reports, that Christian Ellis, the former Eagle, who actually was a free agent in the offseason. I forgot, it might have been the Raiders that actually signed him to a contract. He was a restricted free agent, and the Patriots went and matched him. Right now, it looks like he's going to be starting over Jack Gibbons with the Patriots. Your thoughts on Christian Ellis, particularly in some leagues such as Sleeper, where he's, by the way, listed as a defensive lineman slash linebacker?
Yeah, if he's got that eligibility, that's a bit of a cheat code. He did put about 80 tackles on the field, if I'm not mistaken, and I want to say he had
And he
a
wasn't
sack.
a full-time player.
Right, he had a sack or two. They had a lot of rotation going on last year with linebackers there between injuries and just instability. Uh, I'm not surprised here. I know some people were thinking Jack Gibbons was going to come in and take that second spot. I didn't. I always felt like he was the depth piece that Mike Vrabel wanted to hold on to. He was a Mike Vrabel guy. Uh, so I'm not surprised here at all. Ellis, I am interested in grabbing later in rounds in very deep leagues because I do see some potential value here. If you got 80 tackles, starting a handful of games maybe. Maybe he can do it again. And if something happens to Spillane, then I assume he'd be the top guy to get. But yeah, definitely see some value there. Probably LB 4 or 5 range somewhere around there. I'm definitely taking a shot on him.
Interesting. Okay. I have to admit, I was one of those that thought that with Vrabel, uh, seeking out getting Gibbons from when he played with him at Tennessee to slot him in that number two role. So I'm actually pleasantly surprised by Ellis being there. But Ellis is, we're not talking first round, second round draft pedigree here. So it
Right.
is something to monitor and someone that you don't want to draft too early in your drafts. Now we can switch over to the Bears here. And the Bears, something very interesting is going on. They are deploying, and of course, their new defensive coordinator, Dennis Allen, coming over from the Saints, has been deploying TJ Edwards and Tremaine Edmonds in the two linebacker spots, but he's been flipping them both between the Mike and the Will. And he hasn't landed on who's going to play where. If Tremaine Edmonds ends up in the Mike position and TJ Edwards ends up in the Will position, how are you feeling about those two? Tremaine Edmonds is someone who's consistently underproduced, but if he's in that Mike role, do you feel any different about him? And would you bump him up or not?
I don't think so. Um, I feel like it's just who he is. We've seen it in Buffalo and in Chicago. He's just kind of his ceiling isn't as high as Edwards. I really don't understand the reason they're flipping him around, unless maybe they want to free Edmonds up a little bit more and give him a little more range to make some plays. To me, it feels like they're just putting more pressure and responsibility on both of them. That's probably not really necessary. Uh, a little bit of reading on the entire defense. He's moving guys in a lot of places. I read up on Kyler Gordon is getting moved around into safeties, both safety spots as well. So I really don't know what they're trying to do here on defense. But as far as does Edmonds carry more value, I personally don't think so. I would still take Edwards over Edmonds.
Yeah, and even with that, I'm a little bit concerned about Edwards, particularly if you look at what happened to Pete Werner. In terms from his rookie year to later on, as
Mm-hmm.
they started having them play more man-to-man coverage as opposed to in less zone coverage, Werner's stats really fell off. And if they're in chase position versus zone and stepping back and waiting to move up from coverage with John Macri at PFF has shown the stats that showed linebackers that are playing zone have a higher tackle efficiency rate and more tackles than those that are playing man to man. That could have an impact to both Edwards as well as Edmonds, depending on regardless of which spots they're in. So I'm suddenly very nervous about the Bears linebackers. And of course, we've got the Kings Classic draft coming up here this weekend at the Fantasy Football Expo, and been working on my draft board. And I've actually pushed T.J. Edwards down. Tremaine Edmonds was already down as like a linebacker for us. I'm not pushing him any further, but I've pushed Edwards down to basically the high end linebacker two, which means somebody will draft him before it gets to me.
Yeah, I actually think that's a good strategy. Sometimes when it comes to rankings and trying to fill out your big draft boards, uh, it doesn't matter exactly where some players are. Just be out on them altogether. If you don't feel right about the situation, things aren't adding up. You're going to hate yourself if you draft them and you were right. So, yeah, follow your gut on that. There are certain players I avoid no matter what. So, yeah, I don't blame you there. I have 0 shares of both, and I don't see that changing. I see Edwards going higher than I was already comfortable taking him in a lot of scenarios. So I'm with you too. I think I'm getting out on both as well.
Okay, so Diablo or Edmonds?
Uh, I think I would take the shot on Diablo just because I've seen I can get myself more hyped about him. I think he could potentially have a higher ceiling if he gets full time role, but I wouldn't hate myself if I took Diablo and he failed. Whereas I would have to give up more for Edmonds, and if he doesn't hit what I want, then I'm going to be more upset with myself.
Okay, I'll give you one more. Trenton Simpson or um, or Edmonds.
I think I'll take Simpson on that one too.
Okay.
Just because of again, we're talking about a guy that's played both safety as well, so he's got more coverage ability, more interception plays, stuff like that. I kind of like
Good
that.
deal. All right. Even though we're talking about the AFC West, we're going to talk about the Raiders linebackers here because they might not come up necessarily in the discussion we're about to have. And their unofficial depth chart came out, and they listed three linebackers as starters, although they typically did not play with three linebackers last year. They had a Landon Roberts in the middle. They had Devin White as one starting linebacker, and they had Jermaine Pratt as the other starting linebacker. Look into your crystal ball, Sean Teague at Sean8386. Tell me who's going to be the most productive linebackers of those three when we get to the end of the year.
Boy, it's getting fuzzier and fuzzier every week because converted safety Jamal Adams is hiding behind some of those as well.
Adams is listed as a backup to Devin White. That is correct.
Yeah, so they're looking at getting him some playing time too. I was more confident in the beginning with White because I felt he was more athletic and had more range as far as coverage, and not just a downhill thumper, which is what I view Roberts as. So I'm coming down on Whites. I'm not really going up on Roberts either. I think it's Jermaine Pratt, but I'm not taking any of these guys early at all. I went from being excited to whoever was the Mike, the main guy here, to just kind of nervous of the whole situation. It just get to where I don't like it at all.
So even the reports where Devin White is looking like the Devin White from his peak at Tampa Bay, that's are you
That's
not are you not buying that or
I was in the beginning, but then Pratt got signed, Adams got signed, and now they're raving about now Roberts is going to be the full time guy. He's the green dot, and now now Pratt's in looking like he's going to take over the second spot. They're not going to run three linebackers, the entire game. So somebody's coming off, and maybe it's Roberts that comes out and White slots in. I really don't know. That's what I'm saying. I'm actually nervous about the whole situation because I have no idea what's going to happen here.
so
Pratt
the highest you're going to draft any one of those three as a linebacker three, linebacker four?
4 is comfortable as I'm willing to go with this situation until somebody can break out and say, hey, these are the two guys that are going to be on the field all three downs. Then I can say Roberts, if he's on the field for three downs, I don't like that. He's just a thumper. He's going to get eat up in coverage, probably benched at some point or get
All
pulled
right.
off the field. So,
So you're on the clock in a draft. Your top three people in the queue are the three Raiders linebackers. You're looking for a linebacker
killing me here.
four. You got 8 seconds left now. Which one you picking?
Pratt, I think he's the most well rounded here.
Yeah, I think I'm going Pratt as well. I think Roberts, his lack of pass coverage capabilities, not that Pratt is a superstar, Pratt is better.
Mm-hmm.
He stayed on the field enough last year to say, hey, he could do a decent job, whereas Roberts never really has stayed on the field for that pass coverage.
Right.
So right now, it would be for me Pratt, White, and Roberts would be last, even though Roberts is the green dot guy right now.
And I'm right there with you. Roberts is the guy I trust the least because same thing. Two down thumper is all I see him as. For the other two, have coverage ability, more range, but we'll see what happens.
You know, in running backs, they talk about the ambiguous backfield, and oftentimes if you can pick the right one, that right one is often becomes like a running back two in these ambiguous backfields. The same thing applies to the linebacker situation here. So it's not one of these that I want to totally avoid, but when you get to linebacker four, linebacker five, and depending once again if you're assuming you're in very deep leagues, then these are the types of guys you take a shot at. And if y'all like White better than Pratt or Roberts, take a shot. But once
Yeah,
again, as Sean talked about earlier, if if it's not working out early on in the year, easy to cut bait, not as much of a loss as late as you're probably taking them in your drafts and so forth. All righty. So we'll do one more. We'll talk about the Bengals, and Demetrius Knight is showing up as the number one linebacker next to Logan Wilson. Oren Burks is shown as the starting Sam, the number three linebacker, who will be the one coming off the field. So Logan Wilson, a 1, 2, 3, 4 from a linebacker perspective. The same question for Demetrius Knight. How you drafted him?
Wilson I'll take as a low end one, And Knight, I would take a shot at him as probably mid, low end three
Oh
until
wow. Okay.
until I know for sure what he's doing. Uh, I still have some hesitation there where maybe he comes off the field a little more, doesn't get that full Pratt number of snaps right away. So uh, closer we get to the season, I might start bumping him up. But I think three range is pretty good for him.
Interesting. I'm a little bit more bullish on him, just slightly. I see him like more of a low end linebacker too. Part of my assumption there is, he's playing that Pratt role, which was very
Mm,
productive last year. And so I might be willing to take that gamble once again, depending on my linebackers that I have ahead of him and how comfortable or risky I am with who I took there.
sure.
Logan Wilson, similarly, low end one, high end two
Yeah.
is where I see him. Yep. Okay. All righty. So that's some of the IDP news and particularly focus on linebackers that we wanted to hit for today's show. Once again, if you have any questions you want us to answer or address, you could put them on the IDP Plus YouTube channel for this show specifically, and we'll be happy to answer them. Okay. And maybe even bring them into the show. With that, though, now we're going to start moving into our AFC South and AFC West discussion. And for those that might be watching, we're showing the 6 categories here that we're going to be talking about: our crown jewels slash MVP, our breakout stars, our lemons, which is another code word for bust, return to relevance, who might be coming back because of injury or a really bad season or maybe in a bad situation, whatever it might have been. Got that category. Our hidden gems, which is our sleepers, and then who might be great for dynasty in the future, but maybe won't pay off this year. So with that, let's jump into it. We're going to go with the AFC South. And Sean, you and I both ended up picking for the AFC South the same crown jewel slash MVP, and that is Will Anderson of the Houston Texans. You want to talk about your thoughts on Will Anderson?
Yeah, he's got youth on his side. He's got a good coach in front of him, D'Amico Ryans. He plays in the division with very young, questionable quarterbacks. So I feel like there's 6 games right there where he could probably get 6 to 8 sacks just on those guys. Uh, and he plays opposite to Daniel Hunter. The interior guys are all very solid. So yeah, I feel like him being the younger, faster guy here, that he will get the sacks before Daniil Hunter here will. And I like him, man. He can stand up. He can get down on the ground. He's just a step away from being one of the truly elite guys, I think.
Yeah, and the reports out of Houston is that the Houston defense is absolutely dominating the Houston offense. Now, part of that might be the Houston Texans offensive line.
Sure.
Part of that might be no Joe Mixon. Part of that might be the defense and players like Will Anderson and Daniil Hunter and C.J. Gardner Johnson and so forth are just doing really, really well. And Will Anderson, it sounds like, and this is going to his 3rd year now, another year of weight training, completely healthy in the off season. Just see this as a huge, huge year for Will Anderson. And they talk about oftentimes from the edge perspective, IDP, the top 6, some people say top 7. Go ahead and plan on throwing Will Anderson to that category with the likes of Max Crosby and your TJ Watts and so forth. That's how well I think he's going to do this year.
Yeah, right now I think he's a half step behind him. If you're doing tiers, they're the elites, the ones. He's like 1B, something like that. But yeah, I think he definitely takes the jump this year. Like I said, he against the Colts, that offensive line got ripped apart this offseason. And the quarterbacks, Richardson, Daniels, both very sackable. Cam Ward's a rookie in Tennessee. That offensive line's been bad for years. And again, Trevor Lawrence, same thing. Might be the hardest one for him to get. But when you're in a division that's that weak at offensive line, he's just looking at his chops.
Money, money,
Yeah.
sack, sack.
Was there
Okay.
any? Was there anybody else you considered for your crown jewel? Because I almost went somewhere else.
There was a couple of others that I thought about for this division. Both of the defensive tackle spot. One
Okay,
is Jeff Simmons and one is DeForest Buckner.
that's exactly the other two I have.
Yeah. Those were the two I
Good deal.
considered. And when I got your list, I started to change, and I was actually going to bring this up, and you beat me to the question. So
Oh,
those
good
were the
deal.
two I considered. Jeff Simmons has lost about 15 pounds,
Okay.
and and so he is motivated and invigorated. And DeForest Buckner is just such a stud at defensive tackle and defensive tackle required leagues. As long as he can stay healthy. One of
Right.
the reasons I did put him on is, he did sit out with a foot problem. Sitting out with a foot problem, in 30 when he's age 33 or somewhere around there, 32, 33, I can't remember exactly. This early in the season made me a little bit nervous, so that's why I stuck with Will Anderson.
Yeah, what's interesting when we were looking at the Kings Classics back for the the repeat rate shows, even with him missing 4 or 5 games, whatever that was, uh, he still finished right there in the top, of defensive tackles. He was still right there with them. So that's what he did with 2/3 of the season.
But yeah, and
Pretty
let's
good
just
stuff.
say he and Simmons are both in my top four defensive tackles in my tier one for the Kings Classic draft coming up. Man, I hope none of my competitors watch
Spoilers,
this. Yeah,
yeah, yeah.
exactly. This won't be good.
Yeah, don't
Okay,
release this.
yeah, we may have to hold off publishing. All right, on the breakout side of things, you and I both went with Colts, and you went with linebacker Jalen Carleys, who also is a cheat code if you want to talk about that as well.
Yeah, I think that's one of the biggest things that makes him a breakout is his defensive back eligibility on both Yahoo and Sleeper. And right now, we still think he's going to be the second linebacker. He has been banged up through the offseason here, so he is missing some practice. Cameron McGrawan is another guy I considered after hearing some more news about him, who's actually slotted ahead of Jalen Carleys. But with this being, unofficial preseason stuff, I'm not reading too much in it just yet. But if he's the number two guy, these linebackers have been putting up points for years, regardless of who they are. Anybody that steps in seems to be getting a ton of tackles. This offense doesn't really look any better this year, and I expect them to be on the field a lot. So that was my reasoning.
So Anarumo is coming over from Cincinnati, where basically Wilson and Pratt were on the field, basically, let's just call it almost 100% of the time. So that number two linebacker for the Colts should have a lot of value next to Zaire Franklin. You're right. With Carley's coming back from the shoulder injury, Cam McGrone has been starting in that spot. Joe Bacci has been in the Zaire Franklin spot. Bacci played with Anarumo in Cincinnati as well. And on the first unofficial depth chart that came out, McGrone was ahead of Carley's. So that probably has a lot of people nervous. But I'm with you that I think by the time we get to week one, I think Carley's will be in that slot next to Zaire Franklin starting the year. But it is something we should watch. And it is something that if you're drafting, maybe don't be quite as aggressive maybe as you were planning. Maybe you might want a little bit longer and maybe take more as a linebacker three as opposed to linebacker two. Would you agree with that, Sean?
Oh yeah, absolutely. You really shouldn't be taking any much harder than that anyway. Like I said, the biggest appeal is on like Sleeper. He's probably one of the top 10 or so defensive backs coming off the board because of that eligibility. So if he ends up not getting the starting job, then I'm going to treat him like a defensive back and just cut him and pick up another one. So I'm not counting him exactly as a linebacker on Sleeper, Yahoo, stuff like that. I'm looking at him
There.
as a defensive back with that's playing linebacker. So I have that kind of investment in him as basically I overpaid for a safety at this point. In case it doesn't work out, cut him, sign another one, or pick up another one.
Okay. Well, so I went with Leatu Latu, and there were other names I considered, and I'll talk about them shortly here or briefly. But on Latu, I did some reading, in one of the Colts defensive coaches, the way they describe things, it's almost as if Quiddy Pay is going to play that Sam Hubbard role, and Latu is going to play the Hendrickson role. So if you have a scoring system that truly rewards heavily for big plays like sacks and tackles for loss and so forth, really love Latu from that regard, and that's why I put him on here. But I also wanted to take a chance to use this as an opportunity to talk about scoring systems. Always know your scoring systems. If it's a tackle-heavy system, and the way Hubbard produced from a tackle perspective, it very well may be that Kwity Paye belongs there instead of Latu. So know your scoring systems, keep that in mind. But in a sack-heavy one, Latu, I think, will be approaching double-digit sacks, and I think where there's a lot of platooning last year with the edge players, with folks like Odiengbo and Taekwon Lewis and Pay and Latu and so forth, I think you'll see a lot less platooning, and you will see with the increased snap count as well, that helping Latu to be successful in the breakout. Thoughts, Sean?
I like it. He's another one I considered as well. Um, yeah, I just felt like Carly's had he was the bigger name to go with right now, especially with Latu not having as many snaps, I guess, last year's. I think a lot of us had hoped. But yeah, I like it. Should be in line for a good breakout year. Playing next to Buckner and Stewart also. Those guys are eating up some bodies, so should give him some more one-on-one chances here.
I considered Trevon Walker for this. I considered Travis Hunter for this. But the interesting name I just wanted to mention is Kalen Bullock.
Mm.
Now, people can say Kalen Bullock, but Ricky, he's a deep safety. In most of your shows, you talk about you're looking for box safeties. That is true, but he is. The reports out of Houston is that he is tackling much better and much more aggressively. He has put on some strength as well, and he is feasting on interceptions. And he had lots of interceptions last year as well as a rookie. And so he should be even I'll call it a smarter deep safety. And you look at the Kirby Joseph of the world, you look at Xavier McKinney's of the world. I think Bullock has that kind of capability here from a I'll call it a deep safety perspective. So not someone I'm necessarily targeting as a top 12 safety, but depending on how the run of safeties go and where I'm sitting in my draft and what I have, he's a second safety that I'd be willing to take a chance on for that. Once again, scoring systems are important. If you get a lot of points for big plays like interceptions, really like Bullock.
Yeah, and, with safeties, I really like a tackle heavy safety as my first guy, my anchor guy, and then I'll take a shot on the big play guy for my second safety, like you say, and he's going way lower than a safety two, so probably somebody you could just even right now if you've already drafted, he's probably sitting on waivers.
That you could pick up. That's a great point. All right, now moving on to bust. The Depending on scoring systems, let's just say he was probably a top 3 scoring safety in most leagues. You have Nick Cross as your bust here. So talk to us about why you have Nick Cross as a bust.
Yeah, looking at our breast cancer awareness best ball leagues, I think we're in the 20s, maybe 30s by now with how many we've set up. And using that ADP, he's going as the safety 5. And with Lou Anarumo coming over, looking at how his safeties have produced over the last few years, he's not finishing top 5. I just don't see it. I see this defense as a whole being better, and he's not going to get to eat up the tackles that he ate up last year. So he's, in my eyes, he's being heavily overdrafted on just a 1 year boom. Plus, it was a heavy tackle number for safeties to begin with. The repeat rate for that is pretty low. Not good
So
at
do
all.
you, yeah, so do you see him as even a top 24 safety?
If he is, I would feel safer with him in that 18 to 22 range.
So not in the top 5 for sure, but more than that 18
Not
to
in the
22
top
range.
5, sure. I don't think I like him as a top 12 either. So I would feel better getting him later than that. Uh,
And based on ADPs and what we're seeing, chances are that means you won't be getting him.
yeah, yeah. Which, like I say, that's fine. Overdraft him at 5, and I will get whoever's sliding down for the better value.
Right. So I went with EJ Speed in this category. And of course, he was in the top 3 or 4 in tackles for linebackers this past year. Maybe it was number 3 if I remember correctly. Colts don't re-sign him, goes over to Houston,
Mhm.
thinking maybe he takes over the number 2 spot next to Al-Shaair ahead of Toto. But interesting, I'd made this prediction before the unofficial Houston depth chart came out today, but he is listed as third string right now. And I know you got to be careful about these unofficial depth charts, but Christian Harris, who just came back today to practice for the first time, was listed ahead of him. Stalwarts such as Jake Hansen and Nick Neiman were listed ahead of him. So not feeling great about it. And if you look at the way they did the depth chart, they did have like Nick Chubb as a number 1 running back. So it's not like they're treating these free agents or new to the team differently for the depth chart, but they have him third string. So that further reinforced my thought that don't draft EJ Speed based on last year's numbers, folks. And he's someone that, oof, I don't know if I'm even drafting at this point, Sean.
Oh yeah, I'm not touching him at all. It's going to take an injury or something, probably several injuries for him to even be worth picking up off the waivers. In fact, I almost put the entire Houston linebacker core as my lemon this year because even I feel a little bit shaky about Al-Shaair. I don't think I'm going to see him hit those numbers they did in Tennessee there in Houston. And with the uncertainty with Toa, Christian Harris, EJ Speed, just all the everyone else just feels like it could be anybody any week. And that's not what I want on my team.
All right. Well, so I going to the return to relevance now. Speaking of the Texans, you went with Jalen Petrie, who fantastic rookie year. Past couple years, not nearly as strong as his rookie year. So, what's changing that you think he's going to pop back and return to relevance?
Yeah, I think last year he was really hitting his stride as that nickelback there in the slot and all. And of course, injury happened. So come back healthy. My uncertainty with all the linebackers, how good they're even going to be, I feel like he's going to get some more tackle opportunities just from them. Plus, playing against or up close to the line, he can draw back as a regular safety if he needs to as well. I think his value will pick up this year. He's never going to be worth what he was his rookie year, but I do think he is going to start climbing back up the rankings after this season.
Okay.
Again,
Well,
based on health.
health will be a critical factor, absolutely. Now, I went with Foye Aluakan, and I'm also going to tie in and start hitting on my sleeper, which is Devin Lloyd, which some people might say, is that really a sleeper? But I'll tell you why here. I went with those two. So the Jacksonville defensive coordinator last year, was it Ryan Nielsen, if I remember
Yeah,
correctly?
Ryan Nielsen.
It was Ryan Nielsen, and let's just say there was a lot of concern about the utilization of these both Oluwakan and Lloyd, both in terms of linemen and putting them on the edge at times, rotating them a lot with Chad Muma and Fintrell Miller, because I guess they were worried about him getting tired when that was never a problem in the past for these gentlemen. And so I think the new defense coordinator that came over from Green Bay, and I can't pronounce his last name very well, so I won't even try. Andrew C. It starts with Campanella or something along those lines.
Yeah, Campanella.
Yeah, and so I expect him to use the same type of defense that we used at Green Bay. And if you look at Quay Walker on a points per game basis, he finished as a top 15 linebacker in points per game. So, and of course, Aluakan finished in the 30s in a lot of leagues, once again, depending on scoring systems. So I could see him easily jumping back into that high end two, potentially even low end one range based on just the scheme and putting him back to where he could be most successful and productive and potentially even lead the league in tackles. Okay. Devin Lloyd, if they utilize him like they used Edgerrin Cooper in that second half of the year, and Devin Lloyd is very athletic as well. Lloyd, will he do as well as Edgerrin Cooper? Don't know, but he can maybe approximate him and get back into the top 24. So that's why I have Alua Khan in my return of relevance, and I have Devin Lloyd as my sleeper. Anything you disagree with what I just said?
Not at all, because I had Foye as my return to relevance, and I assumed you would pick him because you have been talking him up here over the last several shows and stuff, or last times we've brought him up. So I pivoted to Petrie. And Devin Lloyd, I had as a sleeper as well, just because of how overlooked he is and where his ADP is right now. He's being drafted as a mid to late linebacker three, and he could finish just outside of the ones if he hits his full potential. So I'm right there with you on both these guys. I'm picking both of them up.
All right. Well, you also had another sleeper, James Williams, out of Tennessee. So tell everybody about James Williams.
Converted safety last year. I believe he was a sixth or seventh round pick. It was late, but he has converted over to linebacker. Got some playing time towards the end of the year. Put up some decent numbers in some spot starts, and he is the lead guy for the second linebacker spot next to Cody Barton. This is a team that's projecting to be on the field quite a bit, and whoever's on Tennessee's roster seems to produce. This is one of those teams that linebackers produce. Playing behind Jeffrey Simmons, solid defensive up front. I guess has left a bunch of openings over the years. So, being a converted safety, he's a tall guy. I think he's 6'4". Uh, Coverage, so now he's giving me shots at interceptions, pass deflections, stuff like that. He's going to be tested. He's still a young guy, so they're going to throw at him. I'm just seeing a lot of opportunities come his way, and as long as he blocks that second linebacker spot up and holds on to it, I think he's going to be one of the steals of IDP drafts because he's practically free right now.
And Tennessee has tended to play their linebackers under Callahan and their defensive coordinators almost their two linebackers about 100% of the time. So he should be on the field. And what was supposed to be a competition between Otis Reese and Cedric Gray and Anthony RG, who they picked up on waivers from the Saints, and Williams, it's pretty much been Williams throughout training camp. And it doesn't appear that that's going to change. So the only concern I have, and I agree with you on Williams, is like today, and that's going to lead into my dynasty discussion. So we're going to jump into that. Titans signed Quandre Diggs, the 32-year-old safety, which I was really surprised at. Why in the heck did they do that? They have Monty Hooker.
Mm-hmm.
They signed Xavier Woods in free agency, and the reports on Kevin Winston out of training camp have been absolutely phenomenal. And so many beat writers are reporting that they're not sure how he gets into the lineup, but it feels like they have to play him because he's constantly making plays. He's all over the place on the field. But then they go and sign Quandre Diggs. So Winston is someone that, you know, it might be until next year that he breaks out. Now, one of the things I also heard is Quandre Diggs is cousins with Cam Ward. So that could be part of the reason they actually signed Diggs. So, but what that means is that's one potentially additional person that Winston has to leapfrog in terms of getting playing time this year. Love his future from a safety perspective. I think he's going to be a tackle machine. I think he's going to be a big play machine, but we may just need to wait a year or so. And you went with I went with his shortened name when I typed it up, Femi Oladejo for the second round pick for the Titans as well.
Yeah, there's no real star pass rusher on this team. I guess Arden Key or Tremont Jones, one of those guys, I guess, or probably both those guys are your starters. I do say Oladejo he's been getting some good hype in camp as well, and I think with just the way this year is probably going to go, we'll see him in the later half of the year unless an injury happens sooner. Uh, I expect him to come in, get some rotation, especially later on. And if I don't expect Arden Key to be around very long, or Jones, any of these guys, they're rebuilding everything. So Winston, Williams, all these guys are young. They're going to be the future of this team. He has a real shot to turn into that Harold Landry role sometime down the road. And even if he comes out with a full time starting job this year, it's it's a rookie edge rusher. It's going to be peaks and valleys, probably more valleys than peaks in the first year. So probably take him a year or two to really turn it up and start producing. But I think he's someone to definitely stash in Dynasty.
Yeah, and he only played one full year as an edge at
Mm-hmm.
UCLA. He started off as an off-ball linebacker, and then they moved him to the edge, and then they loved what they saw, and then they moved him full-time the next year there. So he's got a lot of learning and development to do, but he does have a bright future. And to your point, there has been some wow factor moments in the camp that leads you to believe there's a bright future there. So I'm with you on Oladejo as well. So that concludes the AFC South part of our show. But now we're going to move to the AFC West, and we're moving to the AFC West here. And we both once again had the same crown jewels from an MVP perspective. We had Will Anderson with the Texans for the AFC South, and with AFC West, we both had Mad Max Crosby. Sean, not no concerns about Max coming off his injury last year.
Not after some of those practice shots I've seen. He looks like he's fully up to speed. He's ready to go. High motor max. No, I'm not concerned. This guy's elite. He's a league winner.
Yeah, I agree with you. And the workout regimen that he does in the off season so that he's able to play 98% of the snaps every year is absolutely incredible. You knew something was wrong last year with his ankle and it was hurting him pretty bad when you saw him down to the 75% range, which for a lot of teams is the high water mark for defensive end or edge snap counts. And there's Crosby playing 98% is pretty amazing for an edge player at the speed and the pace he goes through.
Yeah, it's incredible. It really is to put up those kind of numbers for as long as he did. I don't know if we'll see him on the field quite that much anymore, and I wouldn't have him on the field that much anymore. Just to keep him fresh, keep him going. This team's going to surprise people, make a playoff push, stuff like that. So they're going to want him fresh. But yeah, he's going to put up numbers.
Right. So moving on to the breakout stars for the AFC West, someone you sniped from me in the breast cancer awareness IDP draft that we did was Jaden Hicks, the safety from Kansas City. So talk about Jaden Hicks.
I liked him coming out of college last year. I thought that he was a good hard hitting safety, kind of a little bit of a throwback, but he was also a bit of a ball hawk. And we got to see some flashes last year where he got a few interceptions. Didn't get a whole lot of time on the field. But with Justin Reed gone, I know the depth chart says Shamari Connors is in front of him, but I think we all expect him to be the nickel slot. So I'm assuming that depth chart is just for show. I'm expecting Hicks. If he doesn't come right out of the gate as one of the starting safeties, it'll be within a few weeks of the season. And I'm excited for what his role is going to be. Spagnola in the past has had a safety just really put up numbers, whether it be Matthew, Landon Collins, or whoever, Malcolm Jenkins. I'm expecting Jaden Hicks to be the next big thing of Spagnola's defense.
Yep, and um, I think you brought up a great point about the depth chart and where Connor will truly be used, which is more that slot cornerback role. So I'm right there with you, and so that's why sometimes you got to be careful. We do look at these unofficial depth charts, but you got to step back and think big picture and really understand what they're trying to accomplish. A lot of people were surprised that Hicks fell all the way to the fourth round. He was neck and neck with Cole Bishop, who in the second round to the Bills last year, according to draft nicks and so forth. So the
Mm-hmm.
Chiefs think they got an absolute steal. Justin Reed moves on. He moves into that role. And I think he will actually make more big plays to your point, and he is a strong tackler as well. So I'm there with you. Now, some people might say I cheated with my breakout star going with Dayon Henley. I consider others. Jonathan Cooper was one of the other names I considered for that slot as well. I love Cooper as a edge to this year as a side note. I
Me too.
really
Me
love
too.
him from that regard.
Yep.
But I went with Henley. I decided to go with the linebacker position here. Henley didn't start for a big chunk of the year, but when he took over, he took off and clearly became the number one linebacker for the Chargers. And for people who might be new to IDP and only looked at his totals and where he ended at the end of the year last year, where they might not have been familiar with him. So that's why I want to make sure that we did hit on Dayon Henley. If you look at his points per game average from it was either week 8 or week 9 through the rest of the year, and forget about week 17 where for some reason he had a 0. Don't know what happened that last game. but
That's
but
the one everybody remembers too. That's
yeah,
what
everybody
everybody
remembers that one
soured
as
on.
well. That's why there are a lot of Dayon Henley haters as a result of that because it cost him some championships. But
For
if you
sure.
look at that second half time period, he was a top 5 linebacker in most scoring systems. So he's not, if you're thinking you're going to get him like as a mid to late linebacker 2, when you look at his totals from last year, it's not going to happen. I see him as a linebacker 1, potentially even finishing in the top half of the linebacker ones.
Yeah, he is going in that linebacker 2 range right now. Most of the drafts I'm seeing, but it's like at the top of the linebacker 2. So it's going to be tough to get him uh, at a cheap price. But yeah, he's got the full time start. We're not worried about Denzel Perryman, Junior Colson. No, nobody else. It's the Henley show there.
Yeah, and speaking of Junior Colson, just quick tangent, he played like 71% of the snaps in the Hall of Fame game. Troy
That's
Dye started with him. Dye played about 10 or 12 snaps, and then he was out of the game. Maybe it
yep.
was 13, something like that. And Colson stayed on the field, and every time I was watching, Colson was just getting blown up. Um, you know, and so it was interesting when Denzel Perryman got arrested on these arms charges, which have subsequently been dropped, and
Yeah.
also no changes
Dismissed.
how you thinking about Perryman. They were dismissed. Thank you. But there was a lot. Oh, Junior Colson season. Junior Colson. Like, oh man, it's gonna be
No,
Troy Dye season.
Troy Dye season for sure.
It would have been.
For sure.
So unless Colson figures something out, he looked small on the field as well. It
Hmm.
just what it just he just did not look good. So I was actually trying to trade for him earlier this offseason in Dynasty, and right now I'm glad I couldn't pull it off because I'd be really disappointed. I'd be looking to offload him right now for probably cheaper than I acquired him.
Yeah, the snaps from that game pretty much told us what we needed to know, that they view Troy Dye as a if not a second starter, he's just behind Perryman, just waiting for Perryman to get hurt, which is coming. And Colson is the guy that needed all the reps because he is not doing well. So not a good look for Colson for sure.
So you're
Yeah,
saying as the sun rises every day, Denzel Perryman gets hurt every year, is what you're saying?
I will pull it up, but I don't recall him ever finishing a year playing 100% of the games. Or let's
I,
see.
th- I think you're right there. Well,
Nope,
as you're
not a single
no,
one.
not a single one. All right. Well, let's move on to our bust, and also known as our lemons. And you went with Khalil Mack uh, with the Chargers. So talk to us about Khalil Mack. Is this an age thing, or is there more to it?
Age is part of it. Probably the biggest part for me is how much he has considered retirement over the last couple of years. So for him to be that close to retiring tells me in his mind he's just about done anyway. And so once you're really putting that out there, I think you're already retired. So I'm definitely staying off of him. And I do think their strength of schedule is not very favorable this year for their edge rushers for the Chargers. So little bit of uphill battle for probably some of these weeks anyway. And he's always been a bit sack or bust, not to the extreme as some of the other guys, but he may blow up for 4 or 5, 6 sacks and then go silent for a while. So I don't like the inconsistencies there either. But yeah, I just don't know that we're going to get any more good production out of him season long wise.
Well, my bust from the AFC West is Alex Singleton, 32-year-old coming off ACL surgery. Um, Now has a broken thumb. Is going to be playing with a club on his hand as well. Um, Sean thinks I'm an Alex Singleton hater.
He is. Sure, he can't call a taxi right now, but he can still make a tackle.
And I'm just not seeing it. So I love Dre Greenlaw. I do, even though Drew Sanders got hurt, when Drew Sanders come back, if he stays healthy, I see him taking that role next to Dre Greenlaw over time here. I think Singleton's just going to fall off. I think his missed tackle rate is going to go up. His tackle efficiency is going to go down. 32 years old, just not feeling it with Alex Singleton. I think this is the falling off year, and he is done.
All valid points. And to counter you here, I almost had Dre Greenlaw as my lemon.
Well, that what's interesting because I have him as my return to relevance, so that's a
I
good
know.
transition here. There's a big if from a health perspective,
For sure.
but if Drake Greenlaw can stay healthy, I do think they keep him on the field. And last year, by the way, the Broncos often went to just having one linebacker on the field and did play with dimes. And my bet is Dre Greenlaw would be the one to stay on, not Alex Singleton, as a side note, assuming Greenlaw is healthy. So I think Singleton takes a hit from that regard as well. So I know I keep on saying healthy, 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 but if Greenlaw stays healthy and the way he was looking, the way he's looked when he's healthy with San Francisco, in the little bit he played last year when he came back from that Achilles injury, where he was running around and looking really active and being very productive and very efficient, feel really good. He's my choice for return to relevance. Now, you went with an interesting name from the Raiders, who is now probably their number one DT with the release of Christian Wilkins, and that's Adam Butler.
Yeah, we only knew who Adam Butler was because he took over for Wilkins last year and finished in the top 24, top 12, something like that. Uh, Wilkins is gone now, and we both took him off our list. So return to relevance. Welcome back, Adam Butler. You're now the top guy, playing next to Max Crosby and my sleeper here, my hidden gem, Malcolm Kuntz. Uh, I think he's in line for just as good a season as he had last year.
Well, go ahead and talk about Kuntz then.
Malcolm Kuntz, I was excited for him last year, right up to about this time when he got hurt towards the ACL, I believe, and
Correct.
so that's cost him a year. He's had a full year to recover from this, and all accounts are that he is looking good in camp. There's excitement brewing. You got Max Crosby on the side, solid guys in the center. Looking for him to. He was almost at a breakout point last time we saw him a couple years ago. I'm looking for him to really take that next step and to really be the other bookend to Max Crosby here and to get double digit sacks. That's what I'm looking for here. Solid
Gotcha.
tackle numbers and then probably 10 sacks.
And what was interesting too, they lost Caleb Chase on to the Patriots in free agency. They've been using Tyree Wilson in quote obvious pass situations during camp as a defensive tackle in the interior,
Mm-hmm.
which means more playing time for Kuntz. They must have confidence in Kuntz along with Crosby, feeling really good about Kuntz as well coming back this year, particularly in sack heavy leagues, sack heavy scoring leagues. Right there with you. Now I went with Jahdae Barron as my sleeper this year. Now he's a rookie.
Yeah.
And one of the big concerns, though, was are they going to use him on the outside and bump Riley Moss out, or are they going to move him to the inside? Well, by all accounts, Riley Moss, another one where he's put on 10 pounds of muscle in the off season, is looking very, very, very good and appears to have locked down the outside cornerback position across from Surtain, and which means Barron has primarily been playing in the slot, sending Jaquan McMillan to the bench. In that role, Jaquan McMillan, who is a solid defensive back, but he's no Jahdae Barron, was extremely productive, a top 12 cornerback in most scoring systems, tackles for losses, some blitzes for sacks, uh, 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 someone who was targeted quite a bit because of the position he was playing, and they weren't going after Surtain. And Riley Moss did very well, at least for the first 8 to 10 weeks of the year, slipped a little bit later in the year. But anyway, so Barron is well positioned with where he'd be deployed on the field to be a top 12 cornerback in his rookie season. I don't think most people are thinking about him as a cornerback, as a top 12 here, even as a rookie, even though there's the rookie cornerback rule that we sometimes hear about. So that's why I have Jahdae Barron as my sleeper um, for the Broncos from a cornerback perspective.
Yeah, not only the rookie corner rule there, it's Patrick Surtain, reigning defensive player of the year. That's not going to get thrown at, so there goes half the field, or at least a third of it. Yeah, so all signs point that he's going to be near the ball. He's going to get targeted. This defense. If you're playing defense special teams and not IDP, it'd be worth a pickup. Looking for a lot of turnovers coming this year, I think, between sacks, interceptions. One of those guys that is in the rotation to get those sacks is Jonah Ellis, who I picked as my future investment for Dynasty here. I believe he had 6 sacks last year to go along with Jonathan Cooper and Nick Benito, who both are very solid. Benito's just on the that next 2, 3 tier somewhere there behind the elite guys, and Jonathan Cooper has put up really good numbers. Is really overlooked as well. So Ellis isn't quite getting full share right now. I do see him getting keeping their rotation, but if one of those guys were to get hurt, his numbers are going to shoot up. If both these guys don't get big deals or whatever, he could be the next guy coming in. This is only his second year.
Yep, second year, that's correct. And Cooper did get a new deal, but Benito
Cooper
still
did
doesn't.
right.
Yeah, but Benito still doesn't have a new deal yet. And so if Benito doesn't get signed to a new deal, huge opportunity for Ellis.
Yeah,
So
I'm
I'm
not
right
there
there
with you.
with you.
And
And if
he's just fun fact. He's the brother of Caden Ellis and Christian Ellis, who we've also mentioned this show.
that
I think
is
we hit them
correct.
all. I think we got them
And
all.
we did hit all of the Ellis brothers. Exactly right. They should be paying us to endorse them. Uh,
The new
and
Watts.
Yeah. And of course, I've touched on Drew Sanders in some of our previous shows. You heard me talk about him with Alex Singleton. So he was my future investment from a dynasty perspective. But I must admit, when I was coming up with my list, I had 5 Broncos on that list that I was considering. I had Joan Ellis on the list, I had Drew Sanders on the list, I had Dondre Tillman on the list, Savion Jones on the list, and Lavelle Bailey on the list. So I had all of those Broncos. So when Sean Payton talks about he thinks there's a potential Super Bowl team, they do have a lot of depth. They got a strong defense. They got a good young rookie quarterback. They got a lot of improvement in the skill positions. Got a solid offensive line, great special teams. The Broncos in general are a team to watch, and they very well may take over the Chiefs this year.
They're in a tough division. That's the only thing really hurting them. With the Chargers being playoff contenders, you got the Super Bowl contending Chiefs, and then I don't think the Raiders are going to be a big pushover either. They got their work cut out for them. If they take that division, they could just about take on any other team.
That's exactly right. And so it might be one more year before they take over the Chiefs, but I think the Chiefs' reign is about to come to an end with Sean Payton and the Broncos. Is a question of this year, next year, in Ricky's opinion. All righty. So that concludes our AFC West predictions to go along with our AFC South IDP projections. And that starts to wrap up the show for this week. Next week, we will do NFC East and NFC North. We'll do the same thing in terms of covering, and we expect to have a lot more IDP relevant notes with, games now being played, training camp starting to wrap up. We'll start getting things a little bit more clearer in terms of who's moving to starting lineups and who's not. And we'll be talking a lot more about that at the beginning of the show before we get into those NFC East and NFC North projections. Before we go a little bit further, I do want to put a plug for idpplus.com. Incredible articles, incredible tools, incredible rankings, incredible Discord support. Check out idpplus.com, sign up, join the IDP Plus family there. Okay. So with that, Sean, anything you want to add in terms of maybe players we didn't hit on that you wanted to mention, or anything else in terms of wrapping up the show here?
I'll give you a quick preview for next week's NFC East. Abdul Carter has been lining up at the edge, kicking in to the inside, and playing linebacker. So inside linebacker, not just outside linebacker. So we're seeing rotations or we're seeing all 3 guys on the field with Burns and Thibodeau as well. So something to keep an eye on, see if that manifests into the regular season.
Yeah. So I think everybody will be interested to hear our take. Do you draft him as an edge one or edge two? So you have to tune in next week and all to hear more about that and what we think about like a Parsons situation, etc. So stay
Mm,
tuned for that. All right. So look, if you like this show, everybody, please give it a thumbs up on YouTube and subscribe to the channel. If you have any comments, questions, suggestions, please add it on this YouTube channel, and we'll try and respond to all of them. I responded to some of the questions earlier today as well from last week's show. Give me a follow on Ricky Rod 66 and Sean at Sean8386 on X. And of course, you can catch this show or any previous episodes both on the IDP Plus YouTube channel as well as on Spotify. So, with that, we will see you in about a week. On behalf of Sean Teague, this is Ricky Roderick wishing you, your family, your friends great health and happiness. Be kind to one another. We're out of here, and we will catch you next week. And I might even talk a little bit about the Kings Classic draft next week as well.
ooh.
With that, y'all take care, and we'll see you next time. Bye.